Hi, it's Elizabeth. I haven't really talked about this a lot, but April is Autism Acceptance or Autism Awareness Month, and I thought that maybe, by maybe I mean I am doing this, I'm going to be making some videos about different topics relating to autism and being autistic. I think that's important because a lot of the stuff in April that you get as autism awareness isn't actually coming from autistic people. It's coming from organizations that don't like autistic people, and the parents of autistic people who try as they might don't understand what it's like a lot of the time. So I'm going to be making a few different videos about different topics that autistic people probably know a lot about, but people who are not autistic might have a hard time understanding. And this one is going to be about special interests. I have Max with me because he and I are autistic icons, obviously. Ronnie, my kitty's coming. You might see her. Well, what are special interests? You may have heard them referred to as obsessions before, in relation to autistic people. That's what I mostly heard them called when I was younger, but now that I found the term special interests, I like that a lot better. It doesn't have the bad connotations that obsession usually does. Special interests are topics that an autistic person will latch onto, like, you know what interests are. But for autistic people, they are usually much more intense. A lot of the time, they are like some of the only things that make us happy. And we will usually spend a lot of time invested in them. We want to learn everything about them. And it can be very, very, very consuming. Like if you meet someone that says, I like Star Wars. Star Wars fans can be pretty extreme, Ronnie, and they probably know a lot about Star Wars, but if you meet an autistic person who says their special interest is Star Wars, it's probably even more than that. And we'll spend a lot of time, like I said, learning about them, and a lot of the time there'd be like, if it's media, it's the only media we want to engage in. It's the only thing we want to learn about, and we try to relate lots of things to our special interests sometimes so that we can motivate ourselves to do them. You may have heard of the stereotype of savant skills with autistic people, which is a stereotype that autistic people have like one thing that they're really good at, like a prodigy at. And that is not true, but for people who do have those savant skills, that is usually actually an extension of their special interest. Like if you have an autistic person who has a savant skill of like playing the piano really, really well, and they have been able to since they were young, that's probably because music and piano is their special interest. So they've invested lots of time into learning to play the piano and practicing all the time. And special interests can be anything. They can be things like that can be deemed as productive or interesting. They can be things that have fandoms, like Star Wars was my example earlier, and they can be things that people think are really weird. Like I read about this autistic person, and their special interest was vacuum cleaners, and that's something that neurotypical people will have a really hard time understanding. They're like, why do you care so much about vacuum cleaners? I have a hard time understanding that too because I'm afraid of vacuum cleaners, but it can be anything. My main special interests are Lord of the Rings, dolls, My Chemical Romance, Furbies, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You see, one of those doesn't fit into a nice box of something that you can find a community for to talk about with other people, and that can be very isolating. Because, yes, one of my main special interests is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and that's hard because that's viewed as a seasonal thing, and my family doesn't really like it when it's like April, and I'm like, I want to watch Rudolph, and they're like, please don't make us watch Rudolph again. But I'm like, I want to watch Rudolph. And it's hard because other things just won't grab me the same way. So that can be very hard. But it can also be difficult when your thing is something that has community. That can also be very isolating, because, like, for me, Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, but talking to other people who like Lord of the Rings is really difficult, because it's something that, whether I like it or not, is ingrained into my personality and my sense of self. So hearing other people say, oh, I love Lord of the Rings so much, it's like, no, you don't. I love Lord of the Rings. You're not allowed to. And even though that's irrational, that's just how my brain sees it sometimes. It's like, that's mine. That's mine. And it's also hard because, like I said earlier, the other people aren't going to necessarily like it in the same way. So even when you're talking about it with other people, you can feel very isolated. That's difficult. But overall, special interests are usually a very, very good thing for us. My special interests make me very happy. They're very important to me, and they help me to be happy when it's hard otherwise. I'm able to use them to motivate myself to do other things. Like, I remember years ago when I was first getting into Lord of the Rings and I was having a hard time in physical therapy, and so I would compare what I was doing to Frodo and Sam in Mordor when it was really hard for them to keep going, but they had to. And that might seem weird, but maybe not that weird, because Lord of the Rings is a more common interest for people. But, yep, I don't know how to wrap it up. This is my first video for Autism Acceptance Month. I'm a little late starting, and I hope that I was able to explain some things to you. And Happy Easter, I forgot that. I hope you liked this video, and I hope you were either able to learn from it or relate to it. And I'll see you when I make another one, probably soon, because I'm running out of April. Bye!